to chair this meeting. Happy to do it. Are we all set to go? Payson's okay. We're ready to go in Payson. Payson. Oh. Okay, Payson, we ready to go?
Yes, we are.
Oh, thank you, and we're all set on the internet. Okay, I'm going to ask my lovely wife who had her hip replaced 3 weeks ago, and happy to be here to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, if you would. Thank you.
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, if I forgot to say the words, this meeting is called to order. So our first, we have a work session today, which is always great. We can talk a lot about projects and what's going on in the future projects. So our first item today is item 2A, which is information discussion on the current update to the Tunnel Creek Bridge construction project. And we have Tom Goodman and Rachel Hansen with us.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, supervisors. Thank you for inviting us to be here today. We want to give you an update on the Tunnel Creek Bridge project. We have two presentations today, two PowerPoint presentations. I had the first one submitted. Homero asked me to go a little bit more into detail about schedule and budget, so I put together a second one. So we'll go through both of them this morning. I'd like to start with this slide because this is really a great slide, and it to me, it really shows the tremendous effort with all the different agencies and people that made this project get started. So in this one, you see we got our banner in the background. We've got the mountains in the background. We're looking to the east, and just behind us is where the bridge will be built. And again, it's just such a great slide. It really shows how everything came together. That was on October 4th.
And just take a note, the background of the slide, look how much vegetation's there. You'll notice in the future slides the difference of work, how it's progressing.
So this October 4th, we had the groundbreaking ceremony. It really turned out very well, as a lot of people in this room were there, and we really appreciate it. We had this invitation that went out to a lot of people, and we had these coins that you see in the middle. We handed out quite a few of those. We ran short, and we do want to make sure, so we got some for each of you today. We also are getting some extra. We want to make sure that all the kids at the elementary school get one, and so we will take care of that. And then we're just having some extras made that we will pass out during the project as it progresses. So I just want to go back a little ways and just kind of bring you up to speed. As we all know, this is the bridge project. It's kind of down in the Tonto Basin area, which is also, we have the unincorporated town of Pumpkin Center. Just to recap, Ames was low bidder on this project, and they came in at $21,094,933.18. And I'm going to go into that a little bit more here in the next slide. Just to, again, the bridge is 1,981 feet long. It's a very long bridge. It's a concrete steel girder bridge. It's 2 lanes, 1 lane in each direction. It's got shoulders, and then we've got a sidewalk, a 5-6 foot sidewalk on one side of the bridge for pedestrians.
Yeah, and the sidewalk, it runs all the way down to the school, so the kids can use the bridge as an access point to school.
So I want to talk a little bit more about the bids, how they came in, and how we really, I think we did very well on this, actually. So Ames was low bidder, and I mentioned their price, just over $21 million. So ADOT's estimate, which I've got listed as department estimate, ADOT estimated the project would come in at about $21.849 million. So Ames was quite a bit under that bid. And they were actually the only contractor under the department bid. The other 6 contractors listed there, they were significantly over the bid, what ADOT estimated. So I think we were very fortunate that we got such a good bid price from Ames Construction. And you can see the bids range from 23.4 all the way up to 27.8 million. So let's get into some of the challenges we've got with the project. I'm sure everybody knows about these. This area down in Tonto Basin, it's very pristine. There's a lot of habitat that has to be protected. Some of it's endangered, some of it's threatened. The first one I want to talk about is the northern Mexican garter snake. And this little guy is a threatened species. But we have a full-time biologist on the project every day before a contractor gets started. Before he moves one piece of equipment, the biologist walks through and inspects the project. He looks under vehicles to see if there's any snakes. He looks for any activity that happened during the night. And then if he does locate any of these, they have to get relocated before the contractor's allowed to get started.
Also to add, this creek area is a great habitat place for the snake. It's very common near water, so they run into it a lot.
So this is a little bit smaller picture, but this shows, this was actually right in Pumpkin Center. This was taken about 3-4 years ago, and it just shows how careful you got to look out for those snakes. This little guy got right underneath a truck tire. Luckily, he was spotted and they got him moved. So we do have some other threatened and endangered species. This is a southwest willow flycatcher, and this one is actually on the endangered list. So this, again, is something that this comes into more play with the clearing limits, and we were held to clearing between October and March because of the birds nesting during that period. So again, this one's endangered. So we have the next, and I thought we had the name of this guy, but yeah, we do. He's a threatened species. And that's the western yellow-billed cuckoo. So the spiked dace fish is not endangered, but its habitat down in the Tonto Basin is considered critical habitat. So we have to be mindful of that as well. The reason I'm showing you this bridge at the school is it's really tied into the project. So right after the project got started, the principal of the elementary school came to us and said, hey, we've got a problem. When Reno Creek floods, how are we going to get to school or get our kids out if a monsoon comes in the middle of the day while we're in session, because we've got Old Highway 188 closed. So Steve Sanders, our previous Public Works director, came up with the idea. This bridge had been up years before and had been taken down, but Steve had us put it back up for the elementary school. So I just wanted to mention that quickly. There's a lot of pieces about the project that may be going on behind the scenes, but that we're working on all the time.
Also, the library there uses the bridge whenever Reno's flooding, and is the post office, is it past there? Yeah, so it's a good access point for other community members as well to get across Reno when Reno's going.
So it just shows we're really working with the community. We keep them informed of what the project, where we're at with the project. We give them regular updates, and it's really an important part, public outreach. Okay, so let me get into one of the first concerns that we have with the project. This came up shortly after we got started. Again, the groundbreaking ceremony was October 1st, but the project actually had been underway for a month. Time started September 1st, and this is a 390 working day project. So by the time we had the groundbreaking ceremony, Ames had already been out on the project for about a month, and mostly what they had been doing was going through their submittals, looking at their the plans and specifications carefully. They'd been doing some survey work, and they'd been mobbing in and setting up their yard. So this was one of the first issues Ames brought up to ADOT and to us that they had a concern about. And what this has to do with is when we get to building the bridge, there's going to be a lot of cranes and a lot of delivery of the big concrete girders. So Ames brought this up. It's like, hey, we have a problem. You guys didn't give us enough construction easements, temporary construction easements, to get these big steel girders unloaded with the cranes. And they submitted several documents here that I'll go through. So what you see is, you see the bridge, and then you see the cranes there getting ready, and the girders. And then you see down at the, what's in the blue is the additional construction easements that Ames asked us for. So this is just the other side, and again, you see the bridge, and then you see the additional construction easements. So this shows it a little bit better. You see the crane, you see the bridge there, and then on the far left, that's the additional construction easements that Ames asked us to get for them. So there was a lot of debate about this. It wasn't just a slam dunk. Our designer, Kimley Horn, they didn't agree. They said, no, the project can be built the way it is. These additional construction easements are not needed. There was a lot of back and forth discussion between ADOT, Ames, and Gila County. We were involved as well. What it boiled down to was, we got to get to a resolution. We got to keep the project moving, or otherwise it's going to come to a dead stop. And that was the last thing we wanted to happen. So what we agreed was, we will get you the additional easements. And when we tried to do that, we found out the biological opinion is going to have to get updated. So this is where we ran into the problem. The biological opinion is, the update is reviewed by U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. The original one took 8 or 9 months to get it updated. We are now in that process, and it's taking up to 135 days.
Can I make a comment? Yeah. Okay, so if you look at the diagram, notice that the original easement is where the crane is, and they wanted more room for a truck to bring material to and from there. That way they don't have to reset up the crane every time the truck comes in. That's a lot of effort to stabilize the crane, get it in a good position so it can put more material up on the deck of the bridge. So that extra space really gives them more time, or less move around of equipment as well, and just more workability space.
If Mr. Chair, if I may ask a question?
Yes, sir.
The costs involved in them wanting extra space, we're gonna have to get extra permits and things. So what's gonna be the cost, the bottom line cost of this in either project delays or that kind of stuff? Are we looking at more of a cost, more delays on the project? Is there something they can do while this is being waited on?
So, yeah, great question. There are a lot of things that can be done on the west side and on the east side. This, so this easement is for actually when they start placing the girders on the bridge, that's not really scheduled until late summer of this year. So There are things that can be done, but there's a few things that can't be done right now. And one of the things that they can't do is build the gabion baskets on each end. So there are some delays currently associated with us getting these construction easements. So we meet every week. We have weekly meetings every Wednesday with ADOT and the contractor. The delays that we are incurring right now have been going on for about 6 weeks, 7 weeks on getting these additional easements. The Fish and Wildlife Service, they have 135 days to review this new biological opinion. So right now, we're about 6, 7 weeks into delays. Ames notified us just in the last couple of weeks that their standby costs are about $25,000 a month. So that's kind of what we're looking at for delays right now. It's about $25,000 a month that they're going to ask for in compensation.
Yeah, but, Mr. Chair, if they bid it according to plans, then they're changing the plan.
We brought
and
that up.
charging us for it.
The ADOT spec is very clear. When a contractor bids a project, when a contractor submits his bid on a project, he is stating that he is satisfied with the plans as is, and that he can build the project as is based on those plans. The reality is contractors are bidding on a lot of projects. And to get to this kind of detail, to really look at a project this closely, it's, they'll always bring this argument up. It's like, yeah, we did the best we could, but until we really got into the weeds on this thing, we did not realize that we didn't have enough construction easements. And again, this was a big conversation between ADOT, Kimley Horn, and Gila County. And we finally just said, look, we got to resolve this. We don't necessarily agree with it, but we've got to get to resolution. We've got to keep the project moving. It's just critical. And so that's where we're at right now.
Any more?
I'm good for now.
Yes,
Thank you,
Supervisor Klein.
Chair.
Mr. Chair, I got one. So Tom, I'm trying to sort through this as you're giving us this rundown, but basically what they're wanting to do is they're wanting that additional easement to keep from having to tear that crane down and move it every time they need to move.
Correct.
So they bid it that way. That's my opinion. If they have to tear that crane down and move it, then that's what they have to do. You know, I don't know why we would even step out there to try and do that. That's up to the contractor. That ain't up to us.
And that was our position, at the county's position. ADOT did not see it that way. ADOT sided with the contractor. They looked at it and they said, yeah, based on what we're seeing, the contractor needs this additional construction easement.
So then that means ADOT can pay that $25,000?
No, it's going to come out of contingency. So the project, there's 5% contingency in the project, which is $1,054,747. And what's that? Yeah, it's on a different one. So we'll cover the contingency, but it's, right now we haven't gotten into this contingency. We've still got most of that $1 million sitting there. But yeah, that's the way it is. We don't agree with it, but we had to get to resolution to keep the project moving.
So, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes, sir.
Tom, one of the things you're saying is that you've got until the end of the summer when they really need that extra right away, right?
Not necessarily. For the bridge girders, yes, but for the gabion baskets, they need that now.
So explain that to me. Because I mean, this started out with the crane needing to set those pillars, and now we're talking about gabion baskets.
Correct.
So that in itself should have been up front in the contract when they bid on it, in the project.
Absolutely.
Yeah, let me go back just one or two slides here. So
Okay.
So those are the gabion baskets, and then you see them down there on the other end. So on both ends of the bridge, we have gabion
Sure.
baskets. And you can see they've got highlighted that they need construction easements to build those baskets. So that's where right now, that's where the delay is coming from. They can't, right now, they're not able to build those baskets. So we are incurring $25,000 a month delay for that reason at this point.
Wow.
Mr. Chair, if
Yes,
I
sir.
may. They can't place them. They can build them. They just can't place them unless they build them in place?
Well, they build the baskets, but they don't put any material in them. So they build the baskets and then they start placing them and then they start filling them with rock and bringing them up at that point.
And they can't do that within the easement that they have?
Correct.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I know where you're going with this, and I totally see it too. That should have been way up front when they bid on this thing.
No, I don't disagree with you. ADOT will disagree with us. And the thing we have to remember is that ADOT is administering the project for us. So they are the lead agency. We're the owner. Cost overruns are on us, not on ADOT. But ADOT is administering the project. In this case, ADOT said, hey, look, we agree with the contractor. And we brought this up. It's like they bid the project when they submitted their bid, and it's an ADOT specification. They said, we accept it, we can build the project as is. But the reality is where we're at now.
That's amazing to me.
Yeah,
Just
that-
amazing.
We're gonna let you finish your presentation here, but it seems like you could build those baskets from a pad up above them. I guess you can't, but anyway, I agree with the comments that why does any problem that comes along end up being our problem when they had clear plans on what the project involved? We ran into this with Rio Creek and the gabions they put along there. Somebody said, well, oh, I didn't see that there's supposed to be a stack of 3 of them there. And then we ended up having to pay more to that when they should have eaten that, in my opinion. But anyway, Rachel?
Yeah, we agree with you, and also Kimley Horn, our designer, they agree as well.
Okay. Well, we'll talk about that a little more. Any more comments at this point?
Just one recommendation, next time we accept a bid, we ought to have some writing in there, because maybe 23 million, on the ones that bid 23 million didn't want extra access, you know? And so maybe it could have been taken care of when the bid was accepted, rather than us having to get into contingency funds that we're gonna end up paying $24 million for this bridge anyway, because the contractor oversaw some stuff.
Correct.
Yeah, fair point. Go ahead and continue.
Okay. So that's kind of where we're at right now with the current delays. We just drafted a letter to the U.S. Secretary of the Interior for signature either by Mr. Minlove or one of the board members. What we're asking is, let's whatever it takes to expedite this, let's get this biological opinion updated. Let's get out of these current delays that we're in and get Ames going full strength.
So, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes.
That does bring up something too, and James, you might want to chime in on this, but that may call for somebody like Patty in DC to kind of ride herd on this and see if she can't lean on them in DC to try and push this on through. You know, one of the things I think about to get an extended biological opinion on this, the work's already been done on the ground. Basically, they just need the distance. That's all they're looking at. The timeframes have already been identified. So, you know, when you're talking, I think, Tom, you said 100 and some days.
135 days.
There's no reason something like that doesn't go beyond 30 days. I mean, not in my simple way of thinking. So maybe Patty can help us.
Yeah, so we
Thank you,
have
Mr. Chair.
drafted a letter, and we're doing everything we can to get this expedited as quickly as possible.
Mr. Chair, if I may, one more question. Okay, so we're paying what, Game and Fish $250,000 to watch for the snakes and the birds. So adding extra easement, is Game and Fish gonna come back and hit us with more square footage to cover before construction can start?
No, Yeah, they're out there, I think their contract was 175,000, but they're out there every day, so they will, once we get this easement approved by U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, when they approve the biological opinion, Ames will go out there and clear this additional easement. And it's only like 1.5 acres. It's not a lot, but they can't do anything until the biological opinion's updated. If it takes the full 135 days, it's going to be about March 9th. So we hope to have it a couple of weeks ago. We bring this up at every weekly meeting with ADOT. It's like, where are we at on the biological opinion? And ADOT Environmental Planning Group, they give us updates. They understand our frustration. And they're doing everything they can. I think we're doing everything we can to get this resolved as quickly as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any more, Mr. Humphrey? Supervisor Klein, you good?
Good.
Okay, I think you understand how we feel. I have a question. Are we going to keep the footbridge over Reno Creek after this project is done?
That's a good question. We haven't really thought that far ahead on it.
Okay.
Yeah, good question, though.
So I think the message from us is that we should pursue every avenue possible to shorten the biological review to as short as possible. And even though it goes into a contingency mode, taxpayers are still paying for that.
Correct.
So that's not, that doesn't sit well with anybody here, so, okay.
So, Mr.
Yes, sir.
Chair, I do have one more. So, right now, Tunnel Creek is running.
Yes,
So there's actually days there that they couldn't have worked anyway, right?
correct.
How does that play into this?
So what we're doing is, I had a good conversation with the ADOT resident engineer about this, and what she decided to do. Contractor, there's still some things they can do on the west side, but they can't get over to the east side. Ames is not gonna let their employees cross over the creek as long as we have it closed. So what ADOT is doing is they are giving the contractor weather days, even though they may be doing some work, they're giving them a weather day for that particular day as long as they can't get across the creek. So that's, when they give a weather day, it's not part of, it's a working day contract. On a working day contract, we charge Monday through Friday. It doesn't matter if they work 4 10s or 5 8s, they still get charged 5 days a week on working days. When we give them a weather day, they don't get charged for that day. Now that's fine, but at some point, Ames may say, hey, look, this is, we've got equipment sitting out there on standby. And so at some point, Ames may say, look, we didn't anticipate this many weather days, so they may ask for some additional compensation based on that. They haven't done that yet, though.
That's good, because I was about to blow up right on that one. This is winter time, and creeks do run. I mean, we've had the luxury of some pretty dry winters, but, and this was predicted for a dry winter, I get it, and I'll take a dry winter like this any day. But under the circumstances, they know what they're up against.
Yeah. And what we do up in the high country, say up in the Payson area, is we know there's going to be winter shutdowns. But that's anticipated. So you may shut down a project for, say, 2 months. But it's anticipated. The contractor typically will take all their equipment and demob from the project. But this situation is quite a bit different because we don't know. We don't know if the creek's flowing or not. They're not taking their equipment out, it's just sitting there on standby. So it's a little bit different situation.
Thank you.
Well, and this is what happens when you get a bid that comes down to a razor-thin profit margin, and then they try and make it up with in other ways. That I've seen that before, and I'm sure there's an act of God clause in this contract somewhere. But anyway, okay. Is there any other comments before we get these poor people off of the hook? Thank you, Tom and Rachel. Good report. Appreciate it.
No, we're good to, if that's all you guys have, we have more slides, but if.
Oh, you do? Okay, I'm sorry.
We can keep going.
Oh, keep going. I thought
Okay.
you were done. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'll speed it up.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, hey, yeah. I thought you
Enough of
were
that one.
ready to leave.
Yeah, we'll go through these quickly, but
Okay,
we're capturing the entire project with drone. We have a drone. We go down and fly it once a month. And so I just wanted to show some photographs of how the project is progressing. This is looking, boy, that's kind of blurry, but it's looking east. You see some, quite a bit of earthwork going on, and you see the water, Tunnel Creek's flowing. There's the cell tower that went up prior to the start of the job, but again, you can see a lot of earthwork that Ames is doing.
So the first picture, when we showed the groundbreaking ceremony with you guys in it, that's where it happened. And now, when you looked out beyond that first picture, you saw lots of vegetation. You can see all the earthwork that's being done. There's been a lot of work.
This was several weeks ago, January 5th. So you see the creeks flowing. So just some good different views of the project.
Mr. Chair, if I might. So Tom, when you talked about that road being closed off so the school can't get out that way, I mean, is it physically and totally closed off, or is it just construction type road?
It's totally closed. That
Okay.
road's, it's already been torn out. It's gonna be completely rebuilt at a different elevation. So there's.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's no access. And in this picture, you can see there was recently a resident out in the area that tried to cross. You can see his vehicle out there. I think we have a little better picture of it. Yeah, there it is. Fortunately, he was able to get rescued.
I think it's great that they left the truck there for a sign. If they tend to drive around the sign, there's a second one for them.
And can we get the second presentation? So Hermero wanted me to just go a little bit more into scheduling and budget, so I'll do that real quickly.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes, sir.
Too. Also too, on the updates on the photos that you have, I understand that I'll be able to be on the website here soon, so
Yes.
constituents that wanna keep up with the project will be able to see pictures like that from the drones as updated once a month. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. And we'll be linking it to our county website. So all the citizens of the county can see every monthly update. You can click back and see prior months and compare. But it will be a top-down image with those images we had, different angles embedded into that. So you can click on them if you want to see different perspectives of the project.
Yeah, when that's up and going, if you'd let me know, I'd appreciate it, and what the website would be, because it would keep a lot of looky-loos out of the construction site perhaps, if they know they can go on their computer and get updates and not, be driving there to see how it's going today. And as well as people that aren't close to that area will be able to keep up the interest and things on that. So when you come up with that, please let me know and I'll share it at my public meetings.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
if you
Chair.
would copy all of us, that'd be great.
So this is just a really big overview of the project. We started in notice to proceed September 1st. Ames is anticipating the deck pour around October of this year. And then we hope to wrap up in March of 2024. Just breaking it down a little bit more, there's basically 3 phases of construction. We're currently in phase 1, which is most of the earthwork and the actual bridge construction. Phase 2 will be some more of the roadway improvements, and then phase 3 is just finishing the tie-ins, seeding the project, and finishing the signing. And then again, March 2024 is our estimated completion. This just kind of shows the different phases. This is phase 1. It shows in what's hash marked. It's a little hard to see, but it just shows what they're building right now in phase 1. And then this will be phases 2 and 3, which will wrap up the project. I just threw this slide in just as a reminder that the grant that we got from Federal Highway was $21,095,564. Gila County's contribution was $2,825,000. Ames's contract, $21,094,000. We, as of December estimate, we have paid Ames $3,334,819. So that's 16%, the next slide over, 16% of the funds have been paid to ADOT. And time-wise, we're 19% completed with the 390 days. And that's all we have.
Okay, question, Supervisor Humphrey.
Yes? Oh, any questions? Oh, I
Yeah,
thought
any
you said you had a question. I was gonna say, okay, I'll answer it, what do you need? No, my questions were just an update of when I can let the constituents know they can keep up with that. And on the other, there's no other questions. I appreciate you working diligently to try to work through the difficulties that are thrown at you. And you know, sometimes it's easier to just go forward with it, even though it's a bitter taste, so.
Yeah, we don't agree with everything ADOT is, but ADOT, you know, we're paying ADOT to administer the project, and sometimes we just have to get to resolution and keep the job moving.
Right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Supervisor Klein.
Thanks you guys for bringing this up and presenting this. This is good information to us, and I'm sure anything we can do, Homero and James will be hitting us up if we can help push this along. Yeah, I'm on your side. I don't agree with what ADOT's doing as far as the construction part with the contractors, but we'll see what happens. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. James, do you have anything?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like some clarification, if I could, on the whole getting additional clearance for the project. So there's an environmental component of that to get the permits, there's an environmental component. We've done the environmental, had that established for years, actually. So right now, the project, is it sitting, is it being delayed because we're waiting on this environmental clearance?
The gabion basket work is being delayed. Other work is ongoing.
Can I say something about that? The gabion basket work isn't the critical path, though. The critical path is the drill shafts, which those are getting delayed due to weather.
Right. I guess in the discussion of discussing with Patty Power with Washington DC, getting this clearance, I'm concerned with whatever delays that may result from this. And right now we're getting delays based on the weather, but if there is a delay based on getting environmental clearances, what does that come to, and where does that come as far as cost, potential cost to the county? And you may have stated that, but I missed it.
So right now, the Ames is charging us $25,000 a month for the updated biological opinion. That's what they submitted this about 2 weeks ago to ADOT, and it's mainly equipment standby issues. They have equipment standing by because they can't build the gabion baskets, and they estimated that's costing them $25,000 a month.
Costing Ames $25,000 a month?
Yes, and that's primarily equipment standby. So they've got equipment out on the project, it can't be utilized. There's a cost for that.
Yes, sir. Homero.
A couple of great points were made. Right now, Rachel talked about a critical path, and county manager is asking for what's it costing us. There's a 5% contingency for a reason. You're gonna run into issues like this, okay? And in this case, you have to ask yourself, what would the contractor be charging us if they did not have to wait for a biological opinion? And it would probably be zero, okay? They just go get the additional easement from the property owner, whoever that would be, exchange a small sum of money, guarantee that they restore it back to the condition that it was, and they would move on, and we probably wouldn't hear about it. But the biological opinion gets in the way, and they have to stop, okay? So the critical path is, we want to be able to work in the channel before the monsoons, okay? And take care of that, because once the monsoons get started, now we're gonna have not $25,000 a month, but then they would have all their gear out there. Right now, they have limited amount of gear. They're just getting started. In the summertime, they're gonna have everything out there. And every day that stops will be $250,000 a month, not $25,000 a month, okay? And that's what we need to worry about. And so we've drafted a letter for you, James, that says, hey, reduce the 135 days that you can, but don't dare go over the 135 days, because that's gonna be a big problem. And so we need to pursue that. We had written the letter perhaps for your signature, James, but we can easily change it to the chairman's signature, or we can have Patty work with the letter to see what she can do with the Department of Interior.
Clarity on anyone from the board signing, we'd have to have an agendized item and all that, and if time is of the essence, then we need to get this moving as quickly as possible. Who is it that grants the environmental clearance?
Be a
Washington D.C., who is it?
Fish and Wildlife Service.
U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And
So I got a question, and this is I'm gonna throw this out here.
I'm
for
sorry
you,
to belabor
Homer.
this.
No,
Members of the
keep
board.
thinking about it, James. You're doing good. Homero, there's nothing saying that biological opinion's gonna come back in our favor. What then?
We need to start thinking about that.
I would.
What happens then? Again, they've been out there, and they may find something, and we would need to move it. We need to find what. That's a valid question.
Yeah, I'm sitting here listening to this, and it's hard for me to fathom that would be the case after all the analysis has been done in that creek, but it could happen.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Klein, these environmental things, they can get stuck in the muck and mud for a long time, and that's a big concern.
Absolutely.
Mr.
Nice.
Chair, if I may.
Go ahead.
Also too, is in order to have a letter signed by the board, it has to be an agenda item. But as an individual board member, I can write a letter anytime I want to, correct?
Yes.
So if each supervisor decided to write a letter, then it wouldn't have to wait for an agenda to go to wherever it needs to go, asking for help.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, you're very welcome, and we do have a very hardworking and anxious Representative Eli Crane now, so that could possibly be a benefit toward this process. So Supervisor Klein, do you have anything else right now?
No, sir.
James?
We'll move forward.
Okay, appreciate the presentation and all of that. I think you guys are doing the best you can. Really appreciate that. So anything else? Nope, we're good. Thanks.
Thank you.
Agenda item 2B, information discussion regarding the creation of a Gila County Environmental Health Ordinance. Michael O'Driscoll and Josh Beckett, looks like.
Good morning, Board. Chairman and Board of Supervisors. So back in August of last year, we came in front of you during a work session to propose the idea of creating an EH ordinance. And you gave us some ideas of direction, and we're back in front of you again to present this with some of the changes that and ideas that you recommended back in August. And just a really quick recap, this project is basically taking everything we do now with our 2 delegation agreements with the State Health Department, which is food inspections, children camp inspections, school inspections, those kinds of things, and our delegation agreement with ADEQ, which is our on-site wastewater program. So what we're doing is just combining them into one document. So we're really not recreating the wheel here at all, because we're limited in what we can do based on those delegation agreements, the administrative code, and the state statutes. So basically, before this document, we were pulling from 7 or 8 different parts of the state statutes and administrative code if somebody had a question about what our activities were doing. So we believe that combining everything into one document is going to increase transparency for everybody in Gila County as far as what we do in the health department with food safety, school inspections, pools and spas and those kinds of things, and the on-site wastewater program. And increased transparency is never a bad thing. And to make it easier for anybody to figure out if you have this violation, these are the steps that the state administrative code and state statute calls for us to follow. So we've done this. And if you remember back in August, one of the challenges we had was to figure out not-for-profits, the not-for-profit fee structure. So our goal here for the fees in 2005, that was the last time the Board of Supervisors approved a fee schedule for environmental health. So it's outdated considerably. And it's also very complicated. We have over 20 different types of food permits. So what we've done is we've shrunk it down to 4 different types of food permits. And we've related those 4 types of foods based on risk. In other words, a risk 1 is convenience store, but a risk 4 is a full sit-down restaurant. Theory behind this is the risk 4 has more perishable foods, a lot more preparation, pre-preparation, so it's a higher risk. So we spend more time in those facilities doing the inspections. So we've reduced the number of food permits considerably down to 4 risk types, and then we also have additional permits, temporary events, those kinds of things which are typical. And so we did that. And then what we have done is we've asked the county attorney for their opinion on not-for-profit fees. And so Mr. Jeff Dalton is gonna give his opinion here, because the issue is not-for-profits, can we reduce the fees, can we exempt the fees, or do we have to charge them full price? So those are the 3 options that I've presented to Mr. Dalton, and he's here to give his opinion on that, so.
So the issue with regard to giving a reduced fee to anyone, whether nonprofit or anybody else, is that you run into the issue of the gift clause of the Constitution, which has 2 prongs in order to satisfy it. One is it has to be a public purpose, and the second is that it has to provide direct benefits in return that are not disproportionate. So it's the easiest way to look at whether something is providing a forbidden subsidy is to look and see what is being given by the county and what is being received back from the person who's receiving the subsidy in return. And it would be difficult for the county to show that there was some kind of direct benefit that was not disproportionate in a reduced fee situation unless there was a guarantee from the entity that's getting the reduced fee of a return. And some of the cases from the Supreme Court make it clear that the projected increased tax revenue does not count. It's a valueless item to be considered. Or generalized hope for economic benefit is also a valueless thing to consider. So, for example, in this situation, you have a couple of hospitals that are in the county that are not for profit. So if you want to give them reduced fees, then they would need to guarantee something in return. For example, they're going to provide healthcare services to county employees at a reduced cost, which would save the county money in providing healthcare to the employees. That would be a direct benefit that would be countable in a reduced fee situation. Without some sort of guarantee from the recipient giving something back to the county, then the county's taking a risk of violating the gift clause.
Thank you, Jeff. So with those guidelines, I think we'll be able to sit down with the county attorney with some of the not-for-profits and identify those that might be able to offer services under the guidance of the county attorney. And when we do come back for the final vote with the board, have a plan in place to offer up for the not-for-profits that will offer a solution to the gift clause issue as well as what some of the not-for-profits do provide Gila County and its residents. So that's a little murky for us right now with that definition, but I will stop right here and have any questions that you may have. up
Mr.
until
Chair,
this
I got
point.
one.
Yes, Supervisor Klein.
So Michael, when it comes to these fees for this, is there something from the state that tells us how much we have to charge, or is it kind of up to us to adopt what our fees are gonna be?
It's up to us to adopt the fees, however, it cannot make a profit, let's say.
Right on, so if we make those fees low enough where anybody in the world can pay for it, we're good, right?
You can do that, sir.
That gift clause is one that just keeps on giving, and it irritates the hell out of me. And so, and I know it's Jeff's a lawyer, and he's gotta tell us that, but I sure don't like it.
Yeah, we're gonna come up with a solution and something, when we do come back next time. Cause as far as we're concerned for the entire project, this is the last sticking point, before we bring it in front of the board. So I think we'll come up and sit down with Jeff and throw some ideas out, and then I'll sit down with the county manager, Mr. Menlove, and proceed from there.
Thank you, Michael.
You bet. And then what I'd like to do is call up Josh Beck, and he'll sort of go over really quickly the finances for the environmental health side, the food side of things. And after that, I'll call up Jake Garrett to sort of describe the on-site wastewater portion. There have been a couple of rule changes at the state very recently, so we've incorporated those, and he's just gonna go over that really quick, so.
Okay, maybe before he does that, I'll ask Supervisor Humphrey if he has any comments or questions at this juncture.
Mr. Chair, thank you, but I'm
No,
good.
okay. All right, thank you. Josh?
And I got the easy part here. I'm just going to kind of go over the money with everyone here. So good morning, Chairman and Board of Supervisors. So we've looked at all the other counties pretty in detail because we've had this before the board for, what, a year or 2 years now, and we've been watching these other counties and how they've been doing their fees. And quite a few of them do this new fee schedule where it's based on those the severities 1 through 4. Taking out the ones that are taxing districts since they collect tax for it, so they charge a lot less. Through the other counties, it's kind of how we came to where we're at with our fees. We're not the highest, we're not the lowest. We kind of put the fees somewhere in the middle. It gets really confusing when you look at how we're benefiting or at a detriment to a lot of people. A lot of the restaurants, hotels, motels, spas are going to see a much more clear invoice when we do it this way, rather than having fees for multiple different things. Now they're just, a tier 3 or a tier 1, and it'll be a lot more straightforward. So a lot of people are going to see less fees because they're not paying multiple fees. And then those people, those establishments that have a higher risk factor might actually see an increase because we're going to be out to those locations more, like Mr. Driscoll said. So real quick, let me show you where we were at. So I pulled the numbers for the last 2 fiscal years, almost identical. So just so you guys understand where we're at, we pulled in $416,556 in revenue, and our expenditures were $502,000. So the other part to add to that, so those are all the revenues from all the fees and everything we've done. We actually have a $46,000 grant that comes from the Arizona Department of Health Services for smoke-free, which is we get extra money so that when we're out meeting with the establishments, hotels, motels, anybody that we're doing business with, or if we actually get complaints, we work and educate or work to resolve complaints around smoke-free, and we receive that funding each year. So just straight looking at the obvious numbers, we're operating about $50,000 under what we're collecting in fees. That's just obviously the costs that we see on our end in the health department. If you look at the county's cost allocation plan and look at the environmental health that was on the health side and the environmental health that was with Public Works before, so the on-site wastewater, both programs are looking at $40,000 or $50,000 in indirect, so services from other departments, finance, and everyone else that they're doing on behalf of public health with all these transactions and everything that we do. So somewhere, if you're looking at that, probably running around $150,000 under what we're collecting in fees. Not that that's a good thing or a bad thing, that's for you to decide, but so that you understand as we move forward and we look at these fees, that's about where we're at right now.
Thank you, Josh. Were you gonna make another comment?
Yeah, just one clarification. The fees that the revenues generated from the fees that Josh was talking about are both the on-site wastewater and the food program combined. So that's with both programs combined.
Okay, thank you for that. Supervisor Humphrey.
No questions.
Okay, Supervisor Klein.
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, thank you. James, you have any comments or clarification? No, okay, thanks. So, appreciate this. I do remember the last work session that we did have, and so it's a great thing that we're putting all these together. So, as far as fees go, I think we need to be responsible to our taxpayers, but also not look at it as, well, we just need to break even all the time or make some money at it. So it's a balance. And so I look forward to our next meeting and what you come up with for solutions to make all of this affordable generally to the public without there being a lot of inequity from pre-existing business versus a new business or anything like that. So, okay. Thanks, Josh. Jake, how are you?
Well, I'm doing good this morning, supervisors and Mr. Dalton, Mr. Menlove, ladies. The on-site wastewater program, last time we updated our ordinance was in 2014. So the fees for on-site wastewater were updated at that time as well as the ordinance. This, I'll call it adventure to merge the wastewater fees into an environmental health document, a code, I think was a very, it was very, it was a good thing to do. Leave it at that. And during this time, we took the opportunity to include or to incorporate, I'll say, many of the practices that have been involved since I came with the county, such as was a soil test that was done or a perk test that was done in the 1980s. When I started, it was considered to be invalid. But we've never had that in writing. Now it's in writing. So anything that was done since in 1990 or more recent is considered to be valid, at least the data is valid, provided the test is all there. So that kind of thing has now been incorporated into the words of the ordinance. There were also some ADQ, things in ADQ rule that where we wanted to rely on at a local level. And when you look to things, you really had to do more with how people operate their systems and things that lead to environmental nuisances that we end up having to enforce. And we incorporated the words from ADQs, from the rules, state rules, into our ordinance such that we could handle that on a local level very cleanly and with the hearing officers here as opposed to actually having to go through a process that involves attorneys and all kinds of things with the state. So that cleans up our ability to actually have handle environmental nuisances very nicely at a local level. We've added a no charge permit for routine work. And the reason we did that is this. The routine work is typically what happens, what is typically done in a routine work is a leach pipe itself, not a leach line, not the gravel, but the leach pipe can get clogged with roots or clogged with sediments, and that pipe gets replaced and things work just fine. Now, it may work just fine or it may not work just fine, but what we've found, I don't know, lots and lots and lots of times is that people who've had their leach pipe replaced come into the office and say, well, gosh, I got a new leach line, just recently, everything ought to be just fine. And it turns out that as we snoop around, we find that somebody did something. We have no idea what they did. And then you start asking questions, you'll go, oh, well, gosh, that was just routine work. That was just replacing a pipe and nothing else. And as a consequence, they don't have an expanded leach system. It just got working better. So we put in what we called a routine work permit, which is a no charge permit that anybody who's doing routine work, we ask them now to call us and let us know they're doing it. Now we're gonna just issue a quick permit through Track It that says, yeah, we're doing that. So we have record that that took place. That's the simple purpose of that. And we're also going to do something similar to that with the Tri-City Sanitary District. When they start to actually install sewer lines, they'll be providing to community development a map of what they're doing. We'll use that map, but we're gonna also put a note in Track It, so it's a no-charge note that says, hey, we're taking activity on that, so there is record of that. Those are the things that would fall under the routine work side of it. In the designer section, in looking at what the state is now teaching in terms of allowing individual contractors, I'll call them non-credentialed contractors. They have ROC licenses, but not PEs or registered sanitarians. Those uncredentialed people are being taught how to do the design for low-pressure leaching systems. So it's delivering wastewater effluent from a septic tank to leach lines under pressure and doing pump calculations, et cetera. And so we thought now's an appropriate time then to expand the things that our contractors can do, provided they have that education. So we allowed that additional piece of work that our contractors can do in the ordinance. With respect to money, in 2014, we adopted an hourly rate the same as community development. Well, we were with community development at the time, so we adopted their hourly rate, and it was $50 an hour. It seems very low, so we've upped our average. In this ordinance, we've upped our hourly rate to $75 an hour, which is more in line with the costs and the overhead of all of our people combined. And that caused a couple of other fees to go up some. One, the soil test went up to $225 from $160, so to cover the time that's there and that increase in the hourly rate. So that's an example of that. Other than that, no fee increases. And then, well, I think that's it. That's really the crux of what we've done. So I'm certainly open to any questions and happy to
thank you,
address
Jake.
anything you might have.
Supervisor Humphrey, do you have anything for Jake?
No, Jake, I don't, and Michael and Josh, all of you guys, I appreciate you guys working on updating policies to make them easier to read and easier to understand. So if I read them, if you read them, if a constituent reads them, everybody's on the same page and just trying to make it function better. So my hat's off to you guys for helping us with some of these older policies to get them lined out, and I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you, Supervisor Klein.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jake, good to see you. Thanks.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if you're telling me we're headed in the right direction with this, then I'm good.
I believe we're headed in the right
Okay.
direction, so.
All right. Thanks, you guys. Thank
Yeah.
you too, Josh. Michael, it's good. It make it a lot clearer.
Yeah, thank you, Jake. And I did want to point out, we have a couple of our people in Payson watching the meeting, so we appreciate your presence as well.
You bet. That's the environmental health staff for there. We wanted them to hear exactly all the things that
Yep.
you, the board, had to say, and so they're trying out our new facilities up there.
Yeah, great. Anything else, Michael?
Not at all, Chairman. Thank you
Okay.
very much.
All right. Well, thank you for that presentation. Appreciate that. Let's go on to item 2C, information discussion regarding revenues other than property and excise taxes. James Menlove.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good morning. We are in the process of getting close to starting our 23-24 budget. It's hard to believe that we roll around so quickly, and Maren is gung-ho and ready to get started at it. She devotes a lot of time, she and her staff devote a lot of time, energy to putting it all together and make sure everything ties together and that we are building a budget that is in agreeance with you as a Board of Supervisors. One point I wanted to make, and this related to revenues, as I have my discussion, as we go through this discussion today, I'm really expecting that you have to make a lot of comments, but maybe some questions. But as we build this, as we meet with departments going forward, wanted to bring this to you at a high level of our revenues for 23-24 budget, and what things that perhaps we should be considering as we look at our budget for the next fiscal year. One of those is charges for services that has been discussed, and the discussion of that we can't reduce a charge for service or license or permit or something like that because it's against the gift clause for that's included in the Arizona Constitution. Jeff, I'm not gonna, this is just I'm just gonna express my opinion, so it's not a personal attack.
Feel free.
Okay. All right, we're braced.
In Title 11, which is Arizona counties, Title 11, 254, Contribution for Economic Development. Now, this is a statute that would appear to be in direct conflict with the Arizona Constitution. It states, in addition to any other provision of the law, which is the Arizona Constitution, the Board of Supervisors may appropriate from the general fund each year up to $1,500,000, $1.5 million, for the purpose of economic development activity which is operated and maintained within the boundaries of the county and which the board determines to be for the benefit of the public. For the benefit of the public. That's why we brought some of these together, and Jessica always makes sure we say for the benefit of the public. That is statutorily required. Contributions may be made to any governmental agency or to a nonprofit corporation which enjoys and maintains federal tax exempt status as long as all monies are utilized for the purposes determined to be for the public good by the board. If more than one nonprofit corporation is selected for a fiscal year, the board shall determine the portion of the money that each will receive. So for a nonprofit, you can do $5,000 or $1,000, $200, whatever is determined for the good of the public in an economic development type of thing. Now we have a number of different types of nonprofits. We've got hospitals, they're almost always all nonprofits, but they're in the business to make money, and they're not in the business to be like a senior center or our food bank that we have in our communities, things that survive on donations and contributions from all different sources. So I just want to say as we go forward and looking at our revenues and Supervisor Klein, that discussion of can we put our fees really low so that we don't have to worry about this, I'm going to be contrary to that and say we need to charge for our fees what we should and what we can, because that's a statutory revenue for us, and we'll go into that discussion. But what would appear to be a direct conflict in the law, one in the Constitution, which our legal counsel says the Constitution trumps all other statutes. But why is there what appears to be a direct conflict in our state laws? Surely the legislature intended for counties, this is a statute directly for counties to be able to work with the public, to be able to use taxpayer dollars, to use resources to benefit the citizens of Gila County in a way that is determined to be for public purpose by the County Board of Supervisors. My opinion, and just want to make sure that legal is one thing, and they've got to be very black and white, very strict about this. My opinion is there's a direct conflict between the two, could potentially be a direct conflict, but that we need to utilize the tools that are given to us judiciously to benefit the public, which I know each of you as a board, that is your intent, and that's why you're here, why you go through all the, anyway.
Well, James, I just think it's important that we see the full picture.
Sure.
And then as a board, we decide how we want to proceed with our personal interpretations of all these things. So,
Absolutely.
any questions from the board at this point?
I've got one.
Okay.
So I love work sessions. And so James, I've always wondered, and I've thought about this and I've thought about it. And so when we talk about fee for services, I'm gonna use you, Jake, as an example. You're here, I'll use you as an example. But Jake goes out and he does the soil tests and all that and puts all these things together. Whether Jake received money from a permit to do that or not, Jake is paid. It doesn't matter.
His salary is paid.
His salary
Yes.
is paid.
Yes.
And so I've always had this thing about, okay, we're charging extra money to do these things when basically every staff member in this room, no matter what they're doing, they're paid. How did that come to be? You know, I guess I'm going back to the same old thing. We pay taxes for what? I guess is what I'm asking. And that's a luxury of this work session. I can ask that question.
Yes, you certainly may, Supervisor Klein, Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Klein. That is the debate. That is the question of, we are entitled, we're allowed by state statute to charge for certain services, even though that same person that comes in and gets a building permit, an environmental health permit, whatever that permit might be, someone might come and do that. They're paying taxes more than likely. But by statute, because someone that's a contractor may come in from out of county and is not paying taxes, and so we are allowed by state statute to charge for that.
So like what I heard Michael and them say earlier, they're you know, they collect $400 and some thousand in fees or whatever. What if we didn't collect that? Is it gonna make us go bankrupt to where we would have to raise taxes to cover our costs? Or are we, I'm not putting you, I am kind of putting you on the spot, I guess. So,
No, that's why I'm here in
Yeah.
front of you to have this discussion.
right, and
Absolutely.
so that's the dilemma I'm in when I hear, you know, fees for services and whatnot. What if we didn't charge those fees, you know, and emergency health stuff is $400 and some thousand in the hole? What are we looking at as a county if we do things like that?
I'll tell you now that if we were to do away with all of our fees, we would be laying off I was going through my thoughts and putting this together in the wee hours of this morning, so my thinker's a little bit slow, but we could be in the neighborhood of 40 to 50 pink slips to lay people off.
Okay,
And so that's really what it is, and our wages are going to be, we would not be able to afford any salary adjustments for employees.
And that's what I'm digging for, James. That's why I'm asking this question, because, you know, as a board, you know, for the years that I've been on this board, we've always been serious about keeping our taxes flat. We have not wanted to raise taxes. But in a sense, this fee for services is a tax.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Klein, I would disagree.
Okay?
Charges for service is not a tax. A tax is levied to all a permit, building permit, or whatever it might be. You're getting a specific service rather than general government.
See, and that's always been my mental block for me personally, is because I've always had it in the back of my mind, we pay taxes, and so what as a tax-paying citizen, every one of us in this room, what are we getting? And that's where I've been trying to look and see where that balance is at. You know, that's why,
Maybe I think we might go through that just a little bit here.
okay,
A little bit to see what some of the general services are that are provided.
no, that's good. Thank you, James.
So,
If I could add just my perspective on that, as an individual, business or otherwise, comes to the county to have something permitted, that means that they're doing something that the general public is not doing at the same point in time. Perhaps it's building a home, perhaps it's having a restaurant established. And so the privilege of conducting business like that and having a fee associated with it then alleviates the general population from having to make up that difference because they're not opening a restaurant, they're not doing that. So to have a reasonable fee to offset someone's request for something specific, to me, makes sense, as long as it's, like say, not exorbitant or viewed as a punitive thing. Okay. Anything else?
Yeah.
Okay.
I love work sessions.
Yeah.
So with that thought though, Steve, with my theory is a lot of times when it's a business or they're building a house or they're building whatever, we're gonna collect taxes off that. Right? I mean, they're gonna measure it, we're gonna be collecting revenues off most things out there that we would, other than Jake's, maybe his sewer systems, I don't know about that, but for a lot of this stuff, we will be receiving revenues off of whatever it is we're permitting. That's, so this, I don't know, it's something to think about.
why we love work sessions,
Yep.
to have this discussion.
Okay.
If I could, in fiscal year 2021, these are the revenues that we had for the general fund. Taxes, license and permits, intergovernmental, charges for services, fines and forfeits, donations and contributions, investment earnings, other miscellaneous, a total of $68.5 million. So as was mentioned, for our property taxes, which is quite a bit less than that, but there's different taxing sources that are included in that. But we want to keep those flat. We're limited on our county sales tax, excise tax at 1/2 of 1%. We get state shared sales tax from a very complicated and convoluted formula that they distribute money from state shared sales tax. But I wanted to, if we could, look at the ones, considering the other ones, besides the ones that are the larger ones, but the ones that are upfront and foremost on most of our minds. The licenses and permits, charges for services, fines and forfeits, those are generally court fines, court fees, and forfeits. And so those are established by the state through the administrative office of court. We don't have a lot of say in that, though the courts, and I've noticed this always, that the courts administer those fines, fees, and forfeits. They can make a decision as to whether somebody needs to pay that or not. And they can waive a fine completely or make somebody pay. It's, if we look at our two courts that we have here in Gila County, they're very different, even though they're very similar in size and the number of items that are processed through each court. Donations, contributions are other things, and then a bunch of miscellaneous, but for license permit charges for services, if we could consider those. Budgeted licenses, permits, we have four departments that we have from those that are the franchise fees that are come through the Board of Supervisors, even franchise fees, we charge some of those, but then even those are, some we are able to charge to and some that we are not. And there are some inconsistencies there. Community development that we spoke about, building permits, health department for restaurants and wastewater and those types of things, and a small amount from rabies and animal control. Now, these are just, numbers are just, they really don't have any meaning, but by statute, what we are allowed as a county and what you as a Board of Supervisors are allowed to charge up to, as Michael, I think, stated, that we are not going to make money, but we can charge up to what the cost of providing that service is. And those are specified by statute. So for those four departments, a cost of $3.8 million and $825,000. So we have not looked at these. We were behind on our audits, behind our financial statements. We needed to get that part of our house in order before we could really bring this up and be able to know that we have solid information, solid data. But we are to that point, and so the administration, finance, and others are digging into this. That's why I want to make sure that you're aware of being able to provide that information to you. You as a board can decide what the fees are, what you're going to charge. However, it's our responsibility as staff to let you know what that information is so you can make informed decisions on which direction you want to go. And that's, we go in the direction that the board specifies and decides to go. So license permits, $825,000 in revenue, budgeted revenues, and $3.8 million of expenses. Is there some room that those licenses and permits could be increased? There is. I've taken this to other boards of supervisors, licenses and permits. There's a lot of kickback and a lot of people that are against anything, which I'm sure that you realize and understand. So bringing this up is going to be a can of worms. Charges for services we have from the general fund, elections, the recorder's office, the sheriff's office, Pace and Justice Court. Again, these are budgeted revenues, but so Payson had budgeted $90,000 in charges for services. The Globe Justice Court did not budget anything for these revenues. Both of the constables about a similar amount, the health department and public fiduciary. So total budget revenue is $886,000. Those departments, their budgets of $18 million. So is there room to potentially defray some of the costs, burdens? There's room for discussion, and this has not been brought up. I don't know. I would be surprised if it's been brought up for decades, if not just years. Any questions about these charges for services, licenses and fees, of us taking a look at those? And it's kind of we're having a leadership team meeting on February 15th. Happy birthday to me on that day. So, yeah, I don't know how that happened. But we want to roll this out that we're going to be looking at these of what the charges for services are and what we can charge and what we can pay them. And so as we talk about this, I want to make sure that you're aware that we're going to have this discussion with departments, with elected officials, department directors, and being able to look at the details of what their budgets are, what revenues, and how we can match up certain expenditures for those.
Supervisor Humphrey, any questions at this?
I guess I don't have any questions right now other than I'm glad that you're opening that can of worms, and the reason being is, if someone asks, well, why do you charge for this? Well, we're able to charge fees. Well, to me, that's not an answer. But by opening this and kind of creating a formula and see if there's room to decrease or have to increase charges, at least there'll be a formula that I will be able to explain to constituents. It's like, okay, why are you charging me $45 for this? Well, it's like, okay, here's where we're at, here's what it costs us to operate, here's what we're able to charge. So that's how we came up with that particular number, because from what you're saying is right now we're charging fees, and maybe we've been charging them because we've been charging that for the last 20 years and we just took a 5% increase, but we really don't know why we're charging that amount of money for that particular service. So I just want to say thank you for opening that can of worms to help us understand better, to be able to explain better of actually why and what we're doing. It's kind of difficult to hear that, yeah, we're charging that, but we haven't opened that can of worms in a while. So thank you very much for opening that can of worms.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Humphrey, I believe that we are charging quite a bit under. And Michael and his team, that they're beginning to look at this as far as in the health department, that they look at that and fees are quite low in comparison. So, but we need to have that information, exactly like you're saying.
Supervisor Klein.
So I appreciate you guys doing this, James. I really do. It's good for us to know. It's good for us to see. Well, I don't know where it'll come out at. I have no idea. But the more
don't
we know,
either.
the better off we are. And the more people are watching this meeting and listening to it and everything else and seeing this, the better off they are. And so when it comes to you and staff and everybody, I'm really, really glad we're at the point where we can actually do this and really have a good feel for where we're at. And we'll just see where it goes.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, James, for looking at it. And a can of worms it is, I would agree. To use the budgeted income revenue versus total expenditures, 800,000 to 18 million, is probably an unfair comparison. It's not something that we should say, oh, look at we have a shortfall of that amount, because the sheriff's department is never going to make a ton of money on their fees, or the constable or anything else. I think we understand that's just part of running the government. Well,
Agreed.
what I don't want to see is where we are charging so little that it's unfair to our goods and services for the general public, et cetera. But we charge enough to accommodate what's being, and I agree with Woody when he says, let's do away with the fees or really reduce them a lot or anything, because it feels like another tax. However, there's people that are using the system where others are not using the system. One thing that I get a complaint about up there, not too, fairly often, is the fact that someone can build a brand new house on the same street as another home that's 5 years old. Virtually both are brand new, but the 5-year-old home pays much less property taxes. And it's because of the evaluation or assessment that was done and the ability for them to increase that assessment over time. So since they don't increase the assessment very much over time, the person that just built a house may be paying twice the amount of property taxes that the person down the street pays. And so that is something that's complained about a lot. Yeah.
And that's built into the system.
It's not something I
absolutely
can
do that.
control,
Yeah.
but it's a fact, and so people do see that and go, why? So,
Built in the system, I say, that's the state, our state legislators that have passed
Right.
laws about minimum increases each year, and, yeah. you
so
get it.
anyway, that has nothing to do with our discussion. It's that people will complain about increases no matter what. So anyway, go ahead.
So we have what we call an indirect cost. And what this is for certain departments, I've listed the departments here that are considered providing internal services through management, administration of the county, through human resources, or cutting payroll checks, providing facilities, keeping our buildings up to speed, providing county attorney services and to the board, assessor, recorder, treasurer, those things of assessing properties and valuing them and those kinds of things that are providing services to the operation of the county as a whole. So these departments are considered providing services. And again, every year we have to, we're required to have this analysis done to determine what the indirect costs charges are, because there are certain departments, certain internal and external, that we can charge for the services that are rendered to them. We can charge a grant for the payroll that we process for the HR, and all that is allocated out amongst different grants and different things. So those are the departments that can be charged out to other things. Why this is important is that these I know that Gila County has in the past that we have, I don't know if there was an election by the board to make this decision, but I believe that it, as the board has complete and absolute control of the finances of Gila County, that this is something that you should be informed on, that you can, again, make meaningful, informed, knowledgeable decisions on that. And so in our indirect cost plan, these are the indirect costs that could be recovered according to the plan, up to over $13 million of costs that we could recoup, that we could recover. They're calculated and completely independent, and so they are definitely charges that we could. They're based on number of employees, number of transactions that they have, square footage that different office or different purpose is used. So we have taxing districts. Taxing districts, and I will say this, but I don't want anybody to get afraid, that taxing districts for the assessment and collection that the assessor and the treasurer have for collecting taxes for fire districts. All right, we were on taxing district assessment and collection fees, $570,000. I don't, we may, but I don't believe that we charge any or very few entities for this service. Even if we continue to do that, we need to have that information to know that we are subsidizing a fire district or something like that by that amount, which frequently we're asked, well, what's the county doing for us? We are doing things. We are not collecting fees that we are entitled to for providing the service. Internal services that can be charged to the county, general fund, 1.6 million. Special revenue funds, 9.6 million. The library district, $103,000. Public works, $554,000. Enterprise fund, which is the landfills, $409,000. Special assessments districts, these are like street lighting districts and other things like that, are $41,000. Fire districts, $27,000, and then other taxing districts, about $204,000. Total of $13 million that we are entitled, well, I shouldn't say that, that by the indirect cost plan has identified recoverable charges for services that work that we are doing. Does that make sense?
Any questions, Mr. Klein?
Thank
I
you.
have a question.
Yeah, so I'm gonna take one, Public Works. So right there, it has $554,400 that we could recover from Public Works, is that what that's what you're meaning? But give me an example, or us an example, if you would, please, James, on what would that be? I mean, where, I guess, why would we wanna recover anything from the Public Works?
We do now recover some from Public Works. And it's to pay for the other charges. We've got a special revenue fund with special revenues that are identified for this. And if Public Works, there was a road company that was out paving roads, had to operate a business, and they had to have payroll, they had to have an HR function, they had to have a finance function, they had to have management of the department or the company.
Right.
All those different things, those are overhead costs for any company to operate and do businesses. That's what this is for, is those overhead costs. That's not a direct cost of going out there and laying asphalt. It's the management and operations overall of a company.
So like with Public Works, I wanna stay on Public Works, but in my mind, it kinda covers most of them. So Public Works is a big asset to our constituents. I mean, we blade roads, we work in drainages, we help in a lot of different ways. Public Works does. So if say we took $554,000 back from Public Works, to me, my simple way of thinking is we're taking that amount of money away from maybe that what could be put on a road or a street or something like that, or in our employees for wages or whatnot. That's where I'm going. And so I look at this and I look at it like, this is all county stuff, basically. To me, it's just, I think I would have to look at it in the fact, I'd have to be careful to really balance how by doing something like this would impact our constituents.
Okay. Do you have any questions, Mr. Humphrey?
I do. Okay, you say we could recover it. Recover it from whom? From the state? From general fund? From where do we get recovered from?
Okay. Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Humphrey, and just in a discussion, these are, so the costs that are identified that can be reimbursed to the county are general fund costs. For example, Board of Supervisors provide certain functions as management and oversight of the county as a whole. You are the Board of Directors, the board for this 600 employee, $130 million organization. for finance department and those kinds of things. So they are recoveries both internal and external that would reimburse the county general fund. Because all these functions, the board,
Okay, but external, whom? Whom would we go to reimburse us?
they are ones that we provide services such as fire districts. Now, there's a certain component for other taxing districts like school districts and the community college district. Those are precluded from law in us going in and sending an invoice to Gila County Community Provisional College. So we can't do it by law, but we are providing a service to the college of collecting their taxes for them. That's a cost to the county. So there are certain entities, I'll use Tri-City Regional Fire District. We are collecting taxes for them. We could send them an invoice to reimburse the county for the services we provide.
Okay, that answered my question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, and I think that actually helped clear it up for me. So when you say fire districts at 23,000 and change, that means in order to do a pass-through tax situation with them, it costs some money from our own employees, paperwork, time involved, phone calls, whatever it is, to get that done. 26,000. Okay. So what's this 9 million though? That's the big figure, 9.6 special revenue funds.
So that is the big question and one that I do want to touch on. That consists a lot of, what are our special revenue funds? They are revenues that we receive that are restricted as to where they can be spent.
Okay.
As to how they can be spent. We get a grant. We've had Michael O'Driscoll come up here with millions and millions and millions of dollars of grants.
Right.
Related to COVID.
Okay.
And from those grants, there's a certain portion that we can collect, and it's determined by this indirect cost plan, an external accounting firm that comes in and crunches numbers and comes up with an amount that it costs for the county to provide that service. What's one of your grants, Michael?
We have quite a few COVID grants.
Just one. Just name one. Just name one.
Teen pregnancy.
Teen pregnancy grant.
Okay.
So we get a couple $100,000 for teen pregnancy, education, those kinds of things. To administer that grant for the paperwork that in the health department and then cutting payroll checks and all that, there's a certain amount that we can charge to that grant. And that's identified in this study by independent accounting firm.
Okay, so is this just for our information, or is this something that you feel we need to act on? For instance, the fire districts, they already are all out of money. They don't have any much money, and we're not gonna plan on invoicing them for the internal costs, are we? Or are we?
Not my decision, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman, members of the board, not my decision.
Okay.
At all.
But are you proposing that these are places that we should look for recovery?
My only purpose in going through this and presenting this to you today is that you can be aware of what
okay.
these are. It is our I feel it's our responsibility as county staff, support staff to you as a board to identify these and that you can make a decision. And
Okay.
as Supervisor Klein makes me shudder that he wants to do away with all of our fees. Well, I wouldn't say all of them, but he wants to have minimal fees. That there are consequences to that, and you have to weigh those, and one of those heavy anvil weights before you get thrown in the lake of making the decision: are we going to charge a fire district or are we not? Because this fire district is doing good public things, providing safety, and we don't want to charge for that. But we identify that we are we haven't charged Cole's Fire District $5,000. And so we are supporting them financially. We are supporting these districts truly financially by not sending them an invoice for these charges.
James, you better watch it. We're gonna have that gift clause come up here in just a minute. I'm picking on you, Jeff. Mr. Chair, one thing too,
I put Muff on it. I should have.
you know what's good to know this and actually see some figures with it and things like that is when we are in those meetings with our constituents or with fire districts or whoever it is, or, you know, enterprise fund, you know, landfill comes up and giving us fits about how they always have to pay for things and things like that. Well, no, you don't, because here it is. This is what we're doing for you just across the board automatically or not, however this comes out to be. And so to me, this is really good information. And basically what James is saying on those fees is a lot of that's what they call these days, instead of administrative fees, it's coordination fees. So that's what I think us as a board is already doing in a lot of different places.
And even Jeff will support me on this, Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Klein, that we do not have, the gift clause does not come into play with other governmental entities.
Yep.
Okay. Mr. Humphrey, do you have anything?
No, I just, like I say, it's great information and like I say, not, you know, if we reach for recovery, then we're just gonna put those other services in jeopardy of having, they don't have enough money to operate now. Some of them don't. And, you know, as far as some of our fees go, I mean, one thing we've never wanted to do is raise property taxes. And so, you know, we have to live within our budget because we've got bills to pay. And some of those fees that we may charge or need to increase or do away with, if we don't do that, then eventually we're gonna have to raise property taxes in order to pay for all of our bills. And property taxes hit all of the property owners, where individual fees, whatever it's for, then that's go to the person that's using that particular service and not a full blanket increase, as it would be in property taxes. So I've gotten enlightened on a lot of things today, and like I say, it's a big budget, and how we operate it is kind of a delicate situation on whether we do fees or increase property taxes or don't pay our bills or things of that nature. So, yeah, appreciate the information and bringing it to us so that we can communicate on some of these things going forward, especially now that we're just getting ready to look at a budget.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Humphrey, thank you for mentioning that we need to live on a budget, that we need to have limited revenues. That is good, is essential and critical for a governmental entity to be limited on our revenues. We have to make decisions on what services need to be provided and that, but that is a good thing. That's why we're here, why you as a board are here. Can I run through this list real quick? Just kind of some things that we want to look at. This may be a multi-year thing and worthy of discussion that we want to look at. That if a grant, if we've got a grant that comes in, like I said, Michael's got a bunch of grants that have come in. If that grant goes away or the grant revenue is reduced, it has been our, not necessarily a policy, but our practice that we do not continue the grant. As Marin and I have been looking through the budget and stuff, there's some that we need to clean up on that. But if a grant goes away, then the program goes away. We're not going to continue. We're not going to take general fund dollars to continue a program. So that goes to the second bullet, no grant fund subsidies. There are some that we do, but that's a choice of you as you of the board of whether you will subsidize a grant. But our general practice is that we do not subsidize grants. all of this is part of determining what a total program costs. As we look at what a program costs, we need to pick up everything. And then as we go out into the public, and we haven't done this, but to determine what are the services that the constituent wants? What do they expect from Gila County? That we identify something that may be extremely priority. Potholes right in front of your house, that's got to be way up there. But maybe something is very low priority, but we are spending, when we determine total program costs, we're determining that we're spending in excess of what the priority is. And so that the attempt is to right size our delivery of services. That we can go in and prioritize service delivery and the funding levels, meaning that something that's not a high priority, that we can maybe do electronically or online. And that's all we do, that you can go through answer some questions. We don't have to have a full-time staff person to provide a service that may be required of us, but that can be handled by an online thing. Of course, with people always available to answer questions and give direction. So the next to last bullet, allocate resources based on priority. And that's, again, as I said, something that's 2-3 years in the coming. And that lastly, any exceptions to all that we've talked about today, the budget is yours. You are, by law, establish the budget, the three of you. And the decisions, again, as I've said, is our responsibility to provide you information so you can make the best informed decisions that you possibly can. And that's what this attempt is. It may not change anything. It might move things around. But we haven't provided that, getting caught up with our audits and stuff, and I think it's time that we move in that direction.
Mr. Chair, I got a question.
Yes, sir.
James, so this is a real important deal here. So you as a manager, you as our manager, and us as the board that has the ability to put those checks out or whatever. What's your plans, let's just say, for keeping us informed and coming to us after you and the departments and the other electeds or whatever come to grips on, say, prioritize service delivery and funding levels? How are you gonna do that with us? Are you gonna just maybe take certain things at a time, 2 or 3 things at a time, and then put together like a work session we're doing now to where we sit and talk about it? How would we expect to see you bring that forward to us?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Klein, the first process is to identify what the total costs of providing a service or program. And that's what this whole of indirect costs and what Michael's going through of being able to make sure that we have our cost centers identified and that we're including and incorporating all our costs. So identifying what the costs are of providing this particular service. We would bring that to the board in a work session and individually to make sure that we're all on the same page to answer any questions you might have of what the costs are for a program. The finding out what the priority is, of course, that's your priorities and you're out in the public is really the most important part, but doing surveys with the public of saying, putting together a brief survey that can identify what's important to the constituents, to the residents of Gila County. What is the most important things? Maybe rank them 1 to 10. What is your most important thing that you want to see us do as a county government? What can we do for you?
So,
And then bring that back to the board.
so I think that's good. I for one would rather see it in a setting like this, a work session, because, you know, I may have my thoughts, but I hear from my cohorts here a different twist to it or whatever that could change a little bit. I think there's a lot to be said when we work as a board on some of these things.
Cohorts.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Klein, really the only decision that's going to be is in the budgeting process of what level do you fund a certain thing. So all of this is based on discussion and the information sharing that we can do in a work session as a board as a whole, individually, or however it might be. So it'll be information sharing along the process until we get to actual allocated dollars in the budget.
So, one more thing, Mr. Chair. I really appreciate Marion and Mary Pryor, you know, when they sit down at the budget. Our budget is big. It's thick. There's a lot of lines in this budget. For me to sit there in a matter of an hour or 2 hours to go through that, to see every little part of that budget is pretty tough to do. And so that's why when I think about this and how important this kind of stuff is right here, it's almost, for me, it would have to be broke down and presented to something that we could dwell down on and discuss. You know what I'm saying? Otherwise, me and Marion's gonna spend a lot of time together here pretty quick.
Mr. Chairman, absolutely for, Supervisor Klein, any of the questions you have, we'll spend whatever time that you want. If it's a marathon, 3-day, 3-night session, all three of us together in a work session, yeah, we are glad to do it. Getting in the numbers and that it can get really cumbersome and, like you say, overwhelming. And so we want to make sure that your questions are answered, that you can comprehend, because it's a big responsibility that you guys have.
Mm-hmm.
It's a huge responsibility. It's that whole anvil as you go over the boat.
Supervisor Humphrey, anything?
No, I pretty much asked all the questions that I had as we went and comments as I did, so I'm good, thank you.
Great. Any more for you?
No, I'm good, thank you.
As a matter of clarification, I think, of course, you guys do a great job. It's not my responsibility to know every in and out of the budget. That's why we have staff to do that. It's my understanding that the CFO needs to make up any budget shortfalls that occur. That's a joke.
Yeah,
That's it.
I heard that. She's open, she's got her pocket out.
Yep. So anyway,
And hers just like mine is
I
empty.
think the county is doing good. Our county is very good. We actually had an article in the paper today in Payson about how Gila County is up economically. 17%, I think, was there and stuff. So just to clarify for myself, though, on the preceding slide, where we had a $13 million sort of cost of doing business, if I may just characterize it that way, would that figure include any matching money toward grants?
Mr. Chairman, no.
No, okay. So
That's an outflow,
that's a different,
like we had for the tunnel
List.
bridge to something $1 million.
Uh-huh.
That's just an expense.
okay, so, okay, well, that's helpful to me then. Okay?
Okay.
Anything else, anybody?
Nope, I'm good.
No? Okay.
Never give me the podium again. You're starting to talk about finances. I've spent over an hour here, and I'm just really getting warmed up.
We can go on.
What's that?
We can go on, James.
You have any more?
Well,
Well, I mean, planned.
where do we, well, it doesn't matter where we start. I could just keep going.
Yeah, we'll be working on this for the next few months.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay, great. So if that's it, then.
Thank you for your time. I
Okay,
appreciate it very much.
thank you, James.
Thank you, James.
Item number 3 will be the call to the public. Before I read all of this off, do we have any call to the public present here in, anyone that would like to address the board here in Globe? No. Anyone on the internet connection? No. Anyone in Payson, Lisa?
No, sir.
Okay, so then let's move on. At any time, item number 4, at this time during this meeting, pursuant ARS, members of the board and the county manager may present a brief summary of current events. No action will be taken. Manager Menlove.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, did want to bring you up to one item. On last Thursday evening, the Miami Town Council met for a work session to consider a possible intergovernmental public transit authority. This intergovernmental public transit authority is being considered that we establish a transit authority that would govern the transit system throughout Gila County, including Copper Mountain and Beeline Bus, and any other transit that there might be. All the other entities, municipal entities in Gila County had approved. Miami had not. Had a discussion on the IPTA and formation of that, and they were going to have a vote last night. I'm sorry, I don't know what the result of that is. I believe that Miami will join it. What that means is we'll move forward in continuing our exploration of the IPTA. And what that does is that what it would be is that each of the municipal entities and the county would have one representative on this IPTA board. I've insisted that there needs to be a financial contribution to the IPTA in order for there to be a representative on the IPTA board, so that I don't like the thought of having somebody that has no skin in the game of making decisions for the rest of us that are paying the cost of a certain thing. Does that make sense? That so that's why I say pay to play on this, and so that's what we're looking at. Is looking at within the next 5-6 months of bringing that to the Board of Supervisors and the other entities to potentially organize the IPTA. The Board of Supervisors are the one that do take the vote and will organize the IPTA when we get to that point. But I believe that all of our municipalities, Hayden, Winkleman, Payson, Star Valley, and Globe Miami, will all be on board of going forward and continuing to take a look at the IPTA. So I want to share that with you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
Okay, thank you, James. Supervisor Humphrey.
I want to comment on James' comment, but I won't. Anyway, not a whole lot. I met with Congressman Eli Crane and staff, and I was real surprised, because usually when you meet with a congressman's staff, it's over the telephone to staff and not the congressman in person in your office. So I was really impressed that he came to visit. It was nice to go over some things with him. And I'll be attending the regional council meeting tomorrow night at CAG. And we'll be carpooling with Mayor Gameros and perhaps the new mayor of Miami, Angel Medina. And I look forward to that meeting with them for a drive down and a drive back. We get to communicate a lot about things that we don't get scheduled meetings for. And so that's I really look forward to those meetings and our carpools to get enlightened on what's going on within the community. So that's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, thank you. Supervisor Klein.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So same with us. We met with Representative Eli Crane as well and had a really good conversation with him. And I think he's going to be a big help for us as a county and his staff. Like Tim said, good guy. Really, really glad to meet him as well. And coming up in DC, we're meeting with their staff in DC as well. So I think there's going to be some good things that we'll be able to achieve there. And then on that same day, that evening, we attended the legislative reception at CSA. That went over good. Good turnout there. Good visit with everyone. And then on Thursday, the 19th, we attended the CSA Executive Board meeting. And in that board meeting, we actually presented our vet center and to all the counties here asking for their support from a resolution that would support that vet center that we can take forward on the conveyance part of it, and it went over well. They had some questions, they're good questions, but they all supported us. So that was a really good thing. Then on last Friday, I participated in the interviews with the workforce, for the workforce board director. And that went good. There was 2 individuals we interviewed. And then yesterday, we interviewed a 3rd one as well. And I think that went good as well. And so I think we're coming along there. Right now, we're kind of getting to the point, our new executive board that's gonna take over for us has started attending these meetings as well, to get their feet on the ground. They've been a part of this. And I'm hoping that here real soon, they'll be stepping in and we'll be stepping out. And hopefully we'll have that director in place and everything will be good and we'll all be put back together. And I think everything's been fine on that, don't you, James? I mean, it seems to me like the coordination between all you 3 managers and the counties has really come together now, and I think we're doing good, so I'm excited about that. Other than that, that's it.
Thank you. I also attended on Thursday through Zoom, the meeting that you attended with the CSA. Woody was there to make a presentation, so was James. That was good. And one thing I'll do a shout out, a credit, was that our new governor was there too, Katie Hobbs. And that's a rare occasion to see the governor at the CSA meeting. So I was encouraged to think that she would consider the CSA a legitimate enough organization to be present and also offer some encouraging words. We talked about a lot of different things that might be coming up and going through the legislature at this point. The chaos occurring at the legislature is probably pretty high level at this point. They will be producing dozens, hundreds and hundreds of bills. Very few will actually probably go to a vote. One thing that they're proposing, I think, if I understand it, HB 2430, is the pension fund payoff by the state, and the counties will reimburse. So the benefit there seems to be saving $600 and some million by paying it off immediately versus waiting 20 years to pay it off over time. This will save Gila County money as well. And our reimbursement amount will drop from 7.7 million to 1.349 million. We'll have 10 years to pay it at 0% rate, if I understand that. Okay, not a bad deal. And I think that's the direction they'll go, and I hope they do. Just as a matter of a report, I've been assigned to the Gila Community College Advisory Board and have met with Fernando Shipley. We're still trying to form that board completely. It's on my back. I'm trying to find a person and just getting people to kind of call me back, sort of thing. And so I just wanted to let you know I'm still working on that, and hopefully we'll be able to do some good and better things as we now have also discussed becoming more involved once again as the county. So, and that's all I have. If there's nothing else, I appreciate the opportunity to chair the meeting.
Thank you for doing it. I got one more thing,
Okay.
just an update. Coalition of Counties, I got through the email here last week. The petition has been put in to list the coyote on that, so I don't know where I can't imagine it going anywhere, but just so you guys know, that's out there, and as that moves through it, I hope it gets trashed, and doesn't make it very far, but if it looks like it's gonna be coming through there, we'll probably be looking at responding to it, I'm sure. So just letting you guys know where that's at.
Okay, thank you. If there's nothing else, then we stand adjourned. Thank you.